Hello and welcome to this edition of the SFG Top Performance Feed and Grain Podcast. With me this morning is Scott and Mike, and they'll bring you up to speed on some feed items here in a little bit. We'll talk about grain first. And over the years we've always followed the fundamentals. A lot of people watch charts, trends, a lot of different strategies in these markets. And I think you could say in the last almost 2 years, that's kind of all went out the window, or a lot of it. And it's given way to daily news of war, inflation, embargoes, tariffs, world weather, things like that. It just seems like every day we have a new story that moves these markets, and it moves in both directions. Wheat in the last month or 6 weeks has been a big part of that. The world supply, some of it's being held captive in the Ukraine and Russia, and that's, wheat is a true food commodity, you could say. Corn and beans are important to the structure of agriculture and the food chain, but wheat is the number one thing that's used for actual human consumption directly, and so that becomes a big chip that leads the other coarse grains like corn. Beans, sometimes they have a mind of their own, and I think we could say in the last year and a half, they've definitely had a mind of their own as they continue to work higher. Then they'll set back 50, 75 cents, and a week later we're back up trying to make new highs. So that's kind of where we're at today. Old crop stocks appear to maybe be a little tighter than the USDA is saying. And that may or may not be true, but the free stocks are tight. And what I mean by that, the guys that are willing to sell are shortening up. There's still grain out there on the farm. We still got some obligation grain in the elevators, but the guys that own it are able to hold off selling. I think we'll see some sales after pollination. That's just traditional for a few guys to hold 20% of their corn until we get to pollination, and then they feel like it's safe to go ahead and let it loose. Or if we have some tough weather right then, they might be in the driver's seat. This crop is still a couple weeks behind because of the planting dates. We're catching up. But what it also did, similar to last year, everybody got in the field early and that corn went in a hurry. It went in kind of all at the same time. The same thing happened this week, just a couple weeks later. So pollination of a lot of these acres is going to happen in that same 10-day time frame as your neighbor and the people in Nebraska and Illinois. So that puts more risk on that weather event during that period. The other thing, instead of that happening in early July, it's probably going to possibly be mid-July this year. And that adds a little more risk factor, as the chance of some hotter, drier weather in that time frame is more probable than you have in early July. So as we look at things going forward, weather in the U.S. is probably going to be the number one mover of the markets in the next 2 to 3 months. We'll factor in late June, we'll have a USDA report that'll have an updated acreage report. That could easily throw some fireworks. There's a lot of speculation of what actually got planted, but nobody knows what the government's going to say. Right now there's still 1.5 million acres of corn to be planted in the Dakotas and Minnesota. Some of that may have got planted this past week. Some of it won't get planted. And of course the question will be, do they take the federal crop prevent plant at that point, or do they switch to beans? There's already been some spring wheat that got switched out to beans. So we'll know by the end of June kind of what happened, I guess. And that will set the stage for possible supplies coming into the new crop this fall. So new crop prices continue to be attractive. You can sell local beans of 15 and above. I don't know as I can ever remember that opportunity in the years that I've farmed or worked in the grain business. I don't think I ever remember being able to price new crop beans in early June for 15 plus. So that's definitely something to take a look at. New crop corn is slowly working its way back up. We saw some $7 local corn there 6 weeks ago. It took a breather, got back down into the mid sixes, and now we're kind of slowly taking a run back up. But for the most part, in the last week, 10 days, it's been front months leading the way. Again, it has to do with the needs of the end user for nearby commodities. They don't appear to be well stocked, going forward. So when you look at some basis levels that we're seeing now in early June, you kind of got to scratch your head and say, hey, what's it going to be like in the middle of July as things get tighter yet? And yet everybody still needs the grain, whether it's the export market or the domestic market. The ethanol producers are making great money right now. And unfortunately, that's probably going to continue to happen. And I say that in jest, but that means that fuel prices in general are going to stay high. I don't think there's any quick cure for that, so that should help the ethanol business, and that's good for the farmer, except it's coming out of the other side of the pocket on your fuel needs. So, as always, let's keep an eye on things, and don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call myself or some other people in our company and see what you think we ought to do. With that, I'll turn it over to Scott, and Scott and Mike will bring you up to speed on some feed issues.
All righty, thanks, Mark. So it's hard to believe we're in the middle of June already. Sure feels like this year's flying by. Seems like we should be a little further along with haying than what we are. A lot of guys around the Milo area haven't cut anything yet. However, with the cool weather this spring, the alfalfa is a little slower to bloom, so I think things are kind of right on schedule. I'd say most of the alfalfa in the Milo area is just getting to the bloom stage now, so sounds like we might have a stretch of weather coming up that we can get some hay baled up. So with the recent rainfall, that should get it started back in good shape. This would be a good time to get some fertilizer on your alfalfa stands. Make sure you talk with your SFG agronomist. He can make recommendations for your needs. I know fertilizer is higher priced right now, but who knows what the price and availability of hay will be come this fall. You might be happy you baled those extra bales this summer. So I've heard of some pink eye talk already. I think we need to be out there making sure that we're seeing our calves often. We need to get ahead of it before it gets bad. Remember, Smith Fertilizer has fly control products to help with your fly issues. We have both feed through and spray on fly control products, so make sure you stop by and get some of those and be stocked up for fly season. Also, remember, Milo has a selection of darts, which makes treating calves much less stressful on both the producer and the cattle. It's a lot nicer to go out in the evening when it's cooled off and treat calves from a distance. It's as close to stress-free as you will ever find, so give me a call if you got any questions on darts or to check my availability. And that's about all I got. Mike, what you got?
Okay, Scott. Just want to remind you guys that we're in worming season, and at least by the 4th of July, so get the cows wormed. So you got options, guys. we got the Safeguard 25-pound bag, and you can mix it with a little bit of grain, feed, whatever. And that'll do 1,400-pound cows, and it's about $3.60 a cow. So it's very economical. If you don't want to do that, we have the Kent Safeguard 1000. 1 pound does a 1,000-pound cow. So you have that option as well to use a pellet. And do the cows now. The reason we're saying about now and up around the 4th of July, that's when all the eggs in the pasture are at full strength. So if we worm them now, they're going to be good through fall. And so we want to have the cow cleaned up, the calf cleaned up, the pasture cleaned up. So worms reduce the immunity. Worms can affect pink eye, and worms also affect their immunity to the point that vaccines don't work. They don't reach their full immunity. So worming's kind of a no-brainer. Don't cost much for all the benefits. There's a lot of different wormers out there, and I know some of you guys work your own cows. Some of you guys have the vets come out, And I just looked at a study that was published here a while back, and Safeguard is the only wormer that is over the 90%. A wormer has to meet 90% effectiveness or they don't feel it does the job, and Safeguard's at 98%. The only closest one to it is Sidectrin, and the Sidectrin was at 83%. Long range was only 64%, and long range costs too much money in the first place. So again, it's breeding time. So we got high energy tubs. That's always your limiting factor, is energy. Keep your mineral out there. Get the high energy tubs from us. It's Kent's 250-pound high energy tub, and use that during breeding season to make sure that we get cows and heifers bred. Don't forget it's creep time, guys. And we got the creep ready. Some of it's starting to go out. It's a complete pelleted creep. And again, I just want you to know, as dollars spent, your best gain in feed efficiency is complete pelleted creep. I talked to a farmer yesterday that last year we sat down and looked through a commodity type creep that he bought for his calves, and he'd never looked at it before. And for the amount of creep he bought on a commodity creep, which he only saved 20 bucks a ton over a pellet last year, he had over a 10-to-1 feed conversion. And about blew his mind. He said, I thought I bought a lot of creep. Well, with complete pelleted creep, you should get about a 5.5-to-1. So anyway, we're going to do creep business with him. We rent creep feeders. They're $2.50 a day, first come, first serve. So we got some creep feeders going out, so if you need them, you need to holler. So again, we appreciate your business. Call with questions, and that's what we're here for. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the update. Quick note, if anybody's driving around Milo, go by the elevator, you'll see some progress. We've got the pit poured, the approaches are poured to it. In the next couple weeks, they'll start on the substructure to hold the overheads. The other equipment should be here sometime late July, first part of August. So we're on track at this point to get the new leg up and new unload pit for corn. We're really looking forward to speeding things up for the customers in that area. So that wraps it up for this edition of the SFG podcast. Join us again in 2 weeks. Thank you.